Alright, so we're back once again, and today has a little bit of a change, and not because I'm completely out of content. We're going to be going over a game that I played in the dairy not too long ago actually. I think it was 2 days ago at about 3 o'clock in the morning, so this should be interesting. It's actually a pretty decent game overall, but as you can expect from battles nowadays, it doesn't go completely to plan. And when I say doesn't go completely to plan, you can probably infer that it goes completely disgustingly bad. But anyways, if you can look on the minimap, you see our team heading like a lemming tree or a lemming train all into A, which is kind of to be expected in random battles, but it's always a nice thing to see. And meanwhile, our Ostrogothland is playing hide and seek with the enemy team, well, with himself actually, behind that rock, which is kind of confusing to say the least and pretty diabolical to say the best. Now, why am I showing this game? Well, the game's become, let's say, very one-dimensional as of recent. I mean, there isn't all that much variance in the game. All the battleships are staying back. DDs are kind of... Actually, strangely, I think DDs are in a weirdly better place now than they have been, I think, previously. Honestly, mostly due to the fact that if you get spotted trying to contest a cap, you don't have that close-upness of enemy BBs to really slam you into the ground. Sure, you still have the cruisers right there to slam you, but it's nowhere near as bad. Now, as you're about to see, for some reason this Neptune thought it was a good idea to sail literally flat broadside to every ship on our team on this flank. I don't know what to say, dude. Like, initially I thought it was a bot, because usually bots have like no clan names or no clan tags in their names, but then I realized no, because usually bots have like little commas on either side of their name, but this guy doesn't. He just gleefully sails flat broadside and we get first blood, which is pretty decent. Now, if you're observant, i.e. not blind, you'll see that the torpedoes right there were from the small end, for two reasons. Gajiro is on the other side of the cap, which it can't be him. Ostrogothland and the Yugomo have been spotted already, which means that we are already prepped for the small end. Now, in this scenario, I'm a little bit lucky because generally I don't like taking this kind of 1v1 versus a small end. It's not the greatest idea, but with the backup of the Soviet Soyuz, we're fine, and we get our second kill of the game. Now, what's the thing you do in a destroyer once you defeat an enemy DD and you have a cap? You need to look at the flowchart. Flowchart goes from caps to enemy destroyers to damage, in that order. So we killed an enemy destroyer. We can't really get to the Gajiro, doesn't really matter. So instead we go for B cap and we try and test that. Now, of course, there is the risk that we do bump into the Yugomo, which is something I'm willing to accept at this point, because I am playing the Darien and I don't give a damn about any other DD on the game at this point, really, because I can think, if we're being realistic, we can pretty much kill any one of them. Now, from the outset, this game might be looking pretty good. We're up 2 ships, we're up 2 caps, and we're in a pretty commanding position. But what's that one thing everyone wants to do when they're in a winning position? Even myself included. It's one thing. Yep, that's it. They want to win harder. And if you look at the minimap, 1, 2, 3, 4 are all trying to win harder. And while we very gleefully bump into the Yugomo and do significant amount of damage, generally the reason here I accelerated because I thought that Prince Eugene was actually going to be able to like slam a shot into me, which in retrospect was a pretty foolish decision, and although it kind of delayed the cap for quite a bit, but again, not all that much of concern. But as you see, suddenly the Ostrogothland got his bravery for some reason and now is dangerously close to the like 4 or 3 enemy BBs. But this is going to be a running theme on our right hand flank, the enemy team's left hand flank. Just that entire flank is going to have to. They're going to try and win harder, and as a result, what's that thing that happens when you win harder? Oh yeah, detonations. as you can clearly see. First the Soviet Soyuz goes down, and then our Thunder, as you'll see in about a minute or so, realizes that, you know, it wasn't enough for the Soviet Soyuz to do that. He's going to follow suit. And this may seem like I'm rambling and hating on the enemy or my team. That's just simply partially true, but also partially not true. My only goal here is just to bring highlight to very common mistakes where I think are easily avoidable if you just think about the game a little bit more, and actually look at the minimap a little bit more. At this point though, we do pick up our third kill of the game. We do get the Yugomo to go down. For some reason he thought it was a good idea to try and push in there, even though he got destroyed by me initially and he knew I was in B. But we do back away because the only real threat here is from that group of BBs, so I don't want to waste another smoke. We dodge the torpedoes and then it's time to go and be effective. We do pop the hill, but yeah, pretty quiet. So recently I haven't actually been able to, well, I haven't actually got the desire to play the game all that much. I've played a couple of games here or there, mostly exclusively playing destroyers because that's the only game or ship class that I can actually contemplate playing at this point. BBs are surprisingly easy to play right now. I mean, it's really not unheard of to go into a game on a Yamato, and because you're so accurate, you can easily rank up 150k without much real effort at any point in the game. And that's mostly because of the fact that, true, it is an extremely accurate ship, but at the same time, you see shit like this happening where enemy ships just like don't feel like they're going to get punished for sailing flat broadside. And like, you've seen this happening here with the Kuznetsov, holy Jesus. But you also see it with ships like the Neptune earlier on, with the Prince Eugene right here. Like, they don't feel like they're going to get punished, so they just sail in a straight line and then retroactively decide, okay, now I need to turn it once I'm actually being shot at, and not think ahead. So that's why I find BBs kind of boring to play right now, whereas DBs still provide a pretty significant challenge, especially if there's carriers in the game, which always throws in like a little bit of an extra dimension to it, and it's one of the many reasons I love playing Holland. There's no greater feeling than just bumping into an enemy squadron and eviscerating them in about 3 seconds. Now at this point in the game, our left-hand flank or our right-hand flank decided they were finally done winning harder and wanted to play another game. So now that they're all dead, we're going to try and go back and go to the flowchart, and as always, it's contest the cap. So we're going to try and go contest the cap, because even though we are pretty significantly losing at this point right now, even though we have the points and caps in our favor, there's still a slim chance that we can pull something out of the bag if we maintain control of the caps for a prolonged period of time. Now at this point you do notice I'm typing in chat looking for information on how low the Kajiro is, because if I can get that information, if he's on, even if he's on 16k, well, not necessarily. If he's on like 5k to 6k, then I can probably take the 1v1, even with the enemy Kuznetsov and Lepanto. I can take that 1v1, and I can take 1 or 2 salvos from either of those ships, pop smoke, get away, la da 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 da. But if the Kajiro's on like 10, 15k, maybe 16k, that's a prolonged engagement where I'm going to take several salvos, not only from the enemy DD, but from the enemy Kajiro and the numerous enemy BBs that are all gathered around that point, which means that it's automatically a defeat for me, no matter what the scenario is. Even though I have significantly more gunpowder, it doesn't really matter in that situation. That's why when people say what's the best enemy DD for brawling, what's the best enemy DD for knife fighting, it's like, really, there's never going to be situations where you're, well, there's going to be situations where you're in a wholly isolated 1v1, but those situations are going to be extremely rare, so asking questions in that context is just missing the point completely. but like ships like the Daring are so versatile that you can be a lot more variable than other TDs, which is nice, which is indeed nice. At this point, the game, I pretty much decided is over, and we do have 81k, which is going to increase significantly by the end of this. You see, my main goal right now is still the cap A, and as so happens with a lot, I think, of newer players, is that they go into the game thinking, I want to get a high damage number. How do I get a high damage number? And if you go into the game with that mindset, very quickly you're going to realize that you're going to be unhappy, because going in with the mindset of doing damage means that you have actually no real plan for the game. But if you actually have a plan, then damage is just a side effect of playing correctly or playing out a game plan. So if you follow the capping enemy DDs and then deal damage when you have time, you'll see yourself do significantly more damage than otherwise possible. Now, the enemy Yamato here decides that it's a great idea to sail in a straight line and have no alterations to his course, which is not too uncommon again. There's a lot of very interesting... There's a lot of stuff that I'm seeing in this game that I've been seeing for the past like 3 years since I started playing, I think, or even longer actually. I think I started playing in 2016, last 4 years, and it doesn't seem to be changing all that much. And on the one hand, it's fine. There's nothing quite like one-shotting enemy ships or destroying enemy ships. But right now, it's getting difficult to play to the extent because when I go into a tier 10 battle, it feels like I'm going seal clubbing or getting my ass handed to me in every single battle. Mostly because, well, games like this one where you think you're significantly winning, and you are at the start of the game, suddenly flip on their head when the enemy team or when your allied team decides to just run into the enemy team and end the game. And so with no real consistency in the games, it becomes really, really awkward to want to play the game. And this has basically just turned into a therapy session for my inability to actually play the game, which is fantastic. But we do get the first kill on the Yamato. We do rank up 160k damage. Now at this point you may say, hey, you might still have a chance to win the game. You're 741 points to 595, there's only 5 minutes left in the game. No. You see, the Baltimore's going to get spotted. Irregardless, that Baltimore's going to die. There's 5.5 minutes left on the timer. Nagajiro has spotting on them. He knows where he's headed. It's not going to take 5 minutes for a Prince Eugene, a Lion, an Izumo, and a Kajiro to land enough shells on that thing, or on that Baltimore, to completely end his life. We're going to get a sneaky kill in here. He's only 2k HP left. There's no reason not to, because once he dies, I drop undetected once again. And we do manage to pick up the Kraken, which, again, is always nice. And in doing so, we also fulfill our objective of getting the cap, which is, again, always the goal. And as an extra bonus, we get a torpedo hit. Now you may think, at this point, if you look at the score, I have 5 kills and only 2 other ships on our team have kills, that I may be angry, I may be upset, I may be frustrated, I may get a high caliber, which is pretty nice. But you may think like this is a very bad outcome for a game, but the way I look at games like this is that they're not all that bad. Because if you tie your enjoyment of the game to whether you win or lose, then in a 12v12 game, I'm sorry to say, but you're going to be very frustrated, because the majority of the time is going to be completely outside of your control. Whereas if you focus on enjoying good play, making the right decisions, being happy in how you play, you're going to have a much more happy time, or much more enjoyable time playing the game when you make those right decisions, like I did in this game. I think for a large part of it, surely there's some things I could probably clean up, but overall I think I played relatively well this game. And obviously we all know YouTubers only show their best games, so here we are. So you'll see, I did type in chat that it was an interesting game. It is definitely interesting. Yeah, that's one word for it. At this point, the enemy team has all 3 caps. The Baltimore did go down, and well, the game's pretty much over. At this point, my only goal here is to get to 200k. It's a little bit of a vain project, but I thought with the game entirely lost, there's no reason not to go for it. Now you could make an argument that, well, if those torpedoes were better, we could probably kill a Lepanto, but yeah, sadly it's not to be. We do farm to an extent, and we do get, you know, the kills. Oh, we don't get the kill, but we do get the 200k, which is pretty good. But overall, an interesting game. I hope you maybe learned something from it. Let me know in the comments below if you enjoy these type of commentaries. Usually I would go a lot more in detail into my thought process while playing, but I just thought this one would be a little bit more laid back, and just share some thoughts, because I'm having trouble trying to get into the game again. That's why I'm focused now mostly just on playing destroyers, and hopefully they'll spark some creativity. But until next time, I'll see you all in the next one.